Welcome to Athletes to Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct. We've created a platform where athletes and other alumni can network and connect with each other and help everybody out in their own causes. And this show, Athletes to Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey, it's all about athletes transitioning out of sports is a major issue today, whether it's financial literacy, mental health. And we want to teach and inspire athletes that there is life after sports. So we bring on great guests like James Taylor and collegiate and professional athletes and just talk about that journey. How you doing today, James?
I'm doing great, Robin. Thank you so much to Athletes, to Entrepreneurs, to Alumni Direct for having me on the show today. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's our pleasure. So James, he's got a great background, and I mean, my head was spinning. We're talking a little about the sport. We're gonna talk about a lot going through, but he's a Hall of Fame basketball player from Lynn University here in Boca Raton, Florida. And then when he got done with that, he's a White House honored entrepreneur, which he's going to tell us about that because I'm not sure what that is, but it sounds cool. So we'll talk about that. And then he along the way, worked his way up, and he's founded two very successful companies. One is called Tailored Athletes, and it's for youth sports, which is a big part of what we're trying to do, and working like high school ultimate to the college. And then this one for me, we kind of joked around a little bit of a tongue twister, but now it sounds fantastic. It's Fifth Quarter Ventures. I got it right, James, man.
Definitely, you did. You did.
Good deal. So one of the first questions I always ask is talk about playing sports growing up and kind of leading into ultimately into college and how it shaped you.
Definitely. So great question, by the way. I would say playing sports growing up for me was all about fun. Fun and just, being out in the community, playing with friends, doing that good stuff. It wasn't until maybe I got to high school where the idea of going to college kind of manifested for me personally in my life. I come from, my father was a general contractor. So I come from servicemen and women, those who builders. My family was big in agriculture where I'm from. And I had one cousin in the family who played basketball before I did. And he was just one of those dynamic individuals who didn't have a lot of experience playing youth sports as well. Kind of like I did, got a really, really late start. And played 1 year of high school basketball and earned a college scholarship to Central Florida Community College. His name was Joe Butler. And it was because of his connection to college and playing sports that I kind of found that initial interest in doing it. I'll never forget at about maybe 12 or 13 years old. I remember getting ready to get off the school bus, and my cousin Joe was waiting for me. He had a towel over his shoulder. He's like, "Come on, we're going to the gym with me today." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm going to play video games. I got a play date. Me and my friends are getting ready to go play." At that time, it was either early years of PlayStation or a Sega Genesis or just a Nintendo, right? Is what we were doing, but that's what we had at the time. And skipped it that day, went to the gym, walked in. And for me, Rob, honestly, going into this community center and seeing how many people said hello to my cousin on the way in. "Hey, what's up, Joe? How you doing?" Da, da, da. Seeing him going on the court, seeing him getting out there, seeing them in battle in what was a game of 21 in basketball, and seeing him immediately get out there. And then, them competing to seeing whoever wins becomes a captain and they get to pick for the first full court game. Whoever's the second closest gets an opportunity to also be a captain and they can pick games. So seeing those guys out there competing for just that spot to be the honor of picking the teams for the first game really, really inspired me. Seeing all the guys in the community doing that. And I was like, wow, I think I can get used to doing this. And I'm not gonna lie, Rob, I was a couple girls hanging around the gym, and they were there. They were cheering everybody on, and they were, they added a different essence to being in there. And I was like, wow, this is kind of cool for someone like myself who spent a lot of time growing up reading books, spent a lot of time, in science. Spent a lot of times outdoors building and aiding in my father's construction company. So I spent a lot of time doing those things, very hands-on, early childhood, very outdoorsy. not much of a big sports background, but having that inspiration from my cousin kind of ushered me into, what became eventually a passion and a love for the game of basketball.
Oh, that's great. I mean, it's always good to have like some type of a kind of a role model or a mentor. So that's good.
Definitely, but it definitely became a catalyst for some special stuff in my life to come.
That's great. That's great. So now you start a little bit later with this. Did you have a dream of being a professional athlete? And I'm assuming if you did, it was probably being an NBA. But did you, or was there another sport?
Well, no. I definitely had a dream of that. I actually played a little youth football, but I would say it was seventh grade. I started playing around sixth grade, 12 years old. Seventh, eighth grade, I started to kind of see remnants of possibility that I could possibly just go to high school. So to make it honest with you, I played a little competitive travel ball, seventh grade. Didn't play a lot of it eighth grade. Didn't get along with the coach. Again, remember, I have an older brother. Let's talk about my family for a second. I have an older brother who is 17 years older than me. And then I have my sister and I, we're Irish twins. We're 11 months apart. She's older than I am. So we had that huge gap with our older sibling. She was a girly girl, had no interest in sports at all. I then was kind of left as the lone man to do that. So I didn't have a lot of people to just help me with that. But I started playing late. Didn't really get along with the coach. I grew up in a neighborhood with a lot of with people who had huge families. So if there was a name, if that was a Williams family next door, it wasn't just one Williams boy. There was 5 Williams boys, right? Or if there was a Coleman family or a West family, there was 4 West kids. So I grew up in a time where, unfortunately, that's what it was for me. So I found myself on the team with a lot of these players who they had older brothers and siblings, and maybe that coach had older brothers and siblings, and some of them were known as football families, or they were known for playing basketball, and they just kind of had a greater access, or he just gave them a little bit more leeway to make mistakes than I was given. So I didn't have a great experience there. So between my 7th and 8th grade year was the last time my first and only years of playing competitive travel ball. I'm getting ready to go to high school. And I'll never forget, I'm out behind a basketball court in my city. I grew up in Haines City, Florida. And I remember us talking to God, and I was at the free throw line. And I remember distinctly getting ready to take some free throw shots. And I said, God, and this is a lesson about being specific about your goals and your acts. God, you know what? If I make this shot, I'm going to go to Haines City High School. I want to wear number 4, and I'm gonna start on varsity. Took the shot. I made it, Rob. Wow. Second free throw was, hey, God, if I make this shot, again, I'm going to go to college on a basketball scholarship. Took the shot, made it. Third one, God, if I make this shot, I'm going pro. Took the shot, made it. Ultimately, I accomplished all of those goals, but yet, growing up, I learned how to be far more specific about my acts and my goal setting, because of those 3 goals I set, only the first one was very specific and had a lot of detail. First goal was, I'm going to Haines City High School. I'm going to wear the number 4. I'm going to start on varsity as a freshman. Very specific. I accomplished that. Second goal, hey, God, I'm going to earn a college basketball scholarship. I didn't say I wanted to go to Duke. If I had only said I'm going to go to Duke University on a basketball scholarship, possibly I would have made it.
Absolutely.
But I did not. I went to Lynn University, a Division II school, had several Division I offers. I chose to go to Lynn University, and that ultimately became a great choice for myself. But initially wasn't a very specific goal. I didn't wake up thinking I'm going to go to Lynn University in Boca Raton, Florida as a 13-year-old kid, right? That wasn't then I wanted to go to North Carolina or one of those big schools. Thirdly, goal to play professional basketball. I went to a small Division II school, had the privilege of making it to several D-League tryouts, started my career in the NBA Developmental League. when I should have said, I'm going to be drafted by the Indiana Pacers in the first round, number 8. And I probably could have had that. And I'll never forget, David Morway was the general manager of the Pacers. I did some workouts over the summer and got a call on draft night that I wasn't going to be drafted, but just keep working hard. And I ultimately ended up going to the NBA Developmental League, playing for the Royal Note Dazzle, and starting my career there. But lesson in specific and very, detailed goal setting.
Yeah, no doubt. So that's an interesting story.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about, we're going to fast forward out of college. So
Okay.
you're at Lynn University, and one of the things we talk a lot about today is with athletes transition out of sports is what type of education did they do anything at Lynn to kind of work with the athletes about ultimately what would be like beyond sports and helping in different areas? Was that something they did at Lynn when you were there, or possibly even today?
No, I will say that because of my interest in leadership, I became a part of what was called the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. And what that was an NCAA appointed group of student athletes on mostly all major Division I, Division II, or Division III NCAA collegiate institutions will be made up of not just one group of athletes, but the multitude of athletes that made up that campus athletic department. And we began to get some access to information and or resources that could help possibly make the athlete on campus experience better, right? Having advocates if coaches were breaking NCAA regulations. There was a place and a voice for us to go and communicate that stuff to them, but not what you mentioned, right? The preparation for the fifth quarter that all of us would find ourselves to. No pun intended, but actually that was a great plug there, fifth quarter, right? They did not provide us with that guidance and structure to what would be the steps necessary to number one, make it to the fifth quarter, and then also be able to survive and thrive in the fifth quarter once we were done, in that system that we found ourselves in as collegiate student athletes. Wish we would have had that a lot more. I can tell you in my experience, and this is 20 years before NIL, I was a student entrepreneur on campus. So I had a company while I was there called Urban Excellence, and we provided resume writing and scholarship writing for underprivileged kids. Well, started off as a nonprofit organization, but we were able to get grant fundings and some other stuff from local supporters. And I found myself making money. Well, as you recall, back in those times, 2000, I went to college in 2001. That was illegal. Yeah. I was given a Pell Grant and some additional financial aid that we could actually have as a student athlete. But anything beyond that would be considered you would be receiving a unfair benefit. And I almost lost my scholarship. I had to find very creative ways to forego taking this money I had earned as a young entrepreneur on campus to not lose my scholarship, which again, just then 20 years ago, in my opinion, the game was moving way faster and way beyond what regulations or the NCAA and college institutions could ever even grasp and see.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's just what we had to do during those times, but didn't stop me and continue to move on. So to answer your question, no. Is there much of that on campus now? I can say there has been some initiation of that now, but rightfully so. Now kids are actually businesses.
Right.
Not just student athletes. That they fought hard enough. We've survived the back and forth of our student athletes. Student athletes are the employees. Now we know they can earn money from their name, image, and likeness.
Right.
So there are some on there, but not enough to advance of the level that youth need to have, but also the miseducation that young people still don't get before they even get to the high school setting. Mothers, dads who don't even maybe have a certain level of business acumen now that this athlete is in this new system with all these new rewards and opportunities present to them, how do they effectively handle it and manage it all when they themselves don't have the skill sets to do so? And or many of our athletes are coming from families that possibly are workers and W-2 employees, not necessarily entrepreneurs themselves, and truly understand how to be an entrepreneur is where we are now.
Right, and it's a big thing. I mean, it comes to education, and I think
Mhm.
you know, it will lead into the next thing, which you already started talking about, NIL, name, image, likeness. But I think that you know, I've talked to different athletes and even talking to coaches, agents, and it seems that, you know, and you, I'm sure you'll attest this, when you're playing, you're kind of zoned in on. Because I remember asking a guy, I said, well, if you would have had somebody trying to mentor or teach you about these different aspects of, again, financial literacy, mental health, you know, networking, connecting, that kind of stuff, would have
Mhm.
you paid attention? And he's like, probably like, no, I probably wouldn't have, because, you know, all of us when we're young and, you know, like go back, you know, even taking it back to high school. So I think there needs to be ways that we can help, you know, not only athletes, just youth in general. And to your point, like, you know, they might have not had that background growing up, and just, you know, finding ways to educate them. So
Yeah.
going into NIL. So, and I know this is something, a big part of, you know, what you do today with your business. Give me your thoughts, both positive and negative.
Regarding it,
Yes, regarding NIL.
I think that it's the most, I would say it's the reparation of commercialization of collegiate sports. Um, and I think it's definitely old. Okay. However, I think that this younger generation, due to the fact that they misunderstand how you attract that type of commercialization for your athleticism, starts number one with athletic expertise. As now, I think it's making kids focus more now on quote unquote what they think their brand is versus the true acquisition of the skill sets that is needed, the discipline that is needed to sustain, right? I'm gonna give you an example. I was 38 years old when I received the text message from a blog in my from the county that I'm from, and they started their own sports blog. And the goal of it is to just report history of sports in the county, but also highlight and bring things up. And evidently during this time, it was December of 2022. They were talking about some scores in Polk County, and this document was produced that showed the senior year that I graduated high school, I led my entire county in scoring at 19.1 points a game. But the individuals that graduated in that class went on to Texas A&M, Texas Tech, UConn, University of Florida, all these big name places. But I went to Lynn University, right? Why did I bring that up? It took 20 years for me to find out that I led my entire county in scoring.
Right.
So I went to college without that information. So two things happened. Number one, it kept me humble. It kept me focused on discipline and wanting to work hard to accomplish something. But on the other side, maybe it would have given me more confidence as a freshman going in to know that I did that, right?
Right.
Not sure what it would have done for sophomore, junior, and senior year, but to think that all this time, 20 years later, and being inducted into the Sunshine State Conference Hall of Fame, something that I never decided to make that a goal. I didn't think I was that good, right? But when you go back and I go through the statistics and you can see, well, wow, out of every person who's ever played basketball in this conference of its 65-year history, you're in top 5 in every statistical category, right? It's like, well, maybe, you know, maybe you were okay, right? But didn't know it. I just knew that when it came to basketball, anytime I stepped on the court, I loved having the ball in my hands. No one had to always pass it to me. That would explain why I was in top 5 in rebound as a guard, as a point guard. right? I didn't mind taking all, I didn't mind being the one who didn't take all the shots. That's why I made plays and made passes to teammates and finished top 5 in assists. However, I really enjoyed that emotion and that feeling when that ball went through the hoop and it left my hand. I love that, Rob.
Oh,
Oh,
great
couldn't
feel.
get enough of it. Couldn't get enough of it, right?
Yeah.
But saying that, discipline led to all of that opportunity, reward, accolades. Nowadays, our athletes are miscategorized as being ready for the fame and the monetization that they can create based off of social media and a following. I know local athletes here in the Boca Raton area right now who have tens of thousands, 20s of thousands of followers on social media platforms with great engagement that they may not even go to college. But they have a following.
Yeah.
And that following oftentimes doesn't equate to them being successful in that competitive space. So my opinion is that I love NIL. However, because now NIL is something that has become a very attainable platform that someone who never has to make it to the NBA but can still make it to a lucrative space in their collegiate career if they get to that point, as long as they're working hard and being disciplined enough to deserve it based on their athletic expertise, I think it's a great, wonderful product for them. I just don't want our young people to falsely think they deserve something without truly earning it. Because when it all boils down to it, if you were discovered through the sport of basketball, most of your opportunities are still going to come through the sport of basketball, right? If a brand wants to align with you, if a person wants to come and do business with you, typically it's gonna be involved around that sports wheel of some sort, right? There may be some opportunity to pivot and have a different direction, but that sport and your success and you being at the top of that and them wanting to associate with someone at the top of that sport or that particular market in that sport, high school, collegiate, whatever it may be, that's the value. So I just continue to hope that, our young people can continue to build their value first by investing in the discipline needed to be at the top of your athletic expertise in whatever sport that you're working with. And then by all means, take that hard work, go leverage it, go commercialize it the best way you can, and then protect yourself and know what to do with all these newfound resources and rinse and repeat it over and over and over again. So I think it's a great thing, but it can be very difficult for people to truly accept what is needed to acquire the type of platform that many of the young people today are looking for. And social media can sometimes, very, very can misrepresent, that there's something that they're not. And that's what I hope, that it doesn't, taint their ability to develop the true skills and become the top of their sport to monetize it and go crazy with the opportunities there.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's a great thing. I guess from the negative perspective, I think it's just more related to the education, and I know you do that with your company and working and educating these athletes, because I always say it's not just the athletes, it's young people in general, but all of a sudden some of these people have a windfall of money and then they just don't realize, okay, well, you got to pay taxes on it. What do you do with the money? Do you invest in things like that? And that's some of the things that we're talking about, and I know you and I have talked offline about it, just a need for that education.
Definitely.
They've got this great benefit, but let's help them out. So let's talk a little bit about alumni engagement. So one of the things that we're passionate about, obviously at Alumni Direct, is just doing that networking, connecting amongst alumni. But there's a value to the mentorship and the leadership that alumni can bring to fellow alumni or to student athletes. So I guess this is going to be kind of a two-part question, because I want to take your own personal experience with Lynn University and alumni engagement there with the athletes, and then the second part will be taking it from a business perspective what you're in. But with the first question, I guess on the alumni side from the school, did alumni? I get. We'll start when you were there playing, and then maybe today. Did alumni come back? And I don't mean just like the golf tournaments, things like that, but did alumni come back and kind of work to try to help the student athletes across the different sports there?
I can't speak for any other sport on campus, but for basketball, no. I'm gonna tell you another travesty, right? So my freshman year, when I arrived on campus, there were some seniors there, and they, was kind of hanging around after we moved in and got. And next thing I know, a couple of days go by, and I'm seeing these seniors again, and they're not playing, but they were hanging out. And there was another sophomore guy who was there before I was, and two sophomores. And I saw one of those seniors. I went by the room just to say hello. One of the seniors was in his room. Another senior was staying in the other guy's room. I'm like, what's going on? I thought, oh yeah, they're living with us. So they were staying on campus with current players because they themselves needed somewhere to stay to finish their academic coursework in order to graduate.
Okay.
For me, when I walked on that campus and I saw that, it was like, man, the school isn't helping them. The answer to that was no. Their eligibility on the basketball court was over. And that meant that all of their meal plans was over.
Wow.
That meant all of the housing plans were over. It meant that, you know what, hey, we'll allow you to continue to finish to try to get this degree, but we're not buying your books, or we can only cover a quarter percentage of these grades, and you got to figure out the rest. So I didn't see a lot of support when I got there for those seniors. And when I became a freshman and began to be on campus, there wasn't a lot of opportunity and moments where graduates and alumni came back to the school. And then, but as I went on, year 2 wasn't a lot of alumni. Year 3, no alumni. Year 4 wasn't a lot of alumni. So we didn't have that at all. And I can't speak to the institution's fault of that.
Right.
I can't even speak to the athletes' fault of that. I just know that the misconception that an athlete has an opportunity to come onto a collegiate institution in the campus. Many of these people are coming from cultures and communities far different than the institutions and the communities and the cultures where those institutions are located all over this country. I don't care where it's located, right? So after it's over, who's there for them? They didn't grow up in that community. So if alumni is not helping, if the booster clubs are not helping, if that coach doesn't have any real relationships in the community, then what support is there left for that athlete once he or she is done in that program? Not a lot, Rob. So understanding the purpose of what Alumni Direct is and that journey, I salute you guys for trying to connect those two components, because there isn't a lot. For me personally, what I've done over the past 10, 11 years, we probably every year I take on interns from the Lynn University men's basketball program or the Florida Atlantic men's basketball program. So it's been about 10 to 11 years now where we've serviced several of these athletes. Primarily, most of them start their internships with me during the spring once basketball season kind of, dies down a little bit and they have some time. Every summer, we run summer camps here in the community. Who do you think works our summer camps? The players from FAU or the players from Lynn University. So again, someone like myself who didn't have an athlete connect or an athlete direct relationship, I decided to, become that alumni that will connect and plug myself back in to the institution. But that was something that I chose to do. Right. I also did it out of selfishness as well, right? My business needed individuals who, seriously, my business needed individuals who, number one, needed part-time work. Number two, I saw a win-win for them to get out in the community early. So if me establishing programs in conjunction with the city and YMCAs and all these other places, I saw it as a win-win for me to help them get out in the community. The first point of introduction that these athletes will have to affect some type of positive influence over someone else's life would be them being positively influencing this child, right? I can't tell you how great my life has been because I firstly positively influenced the child first. And then their parent naturally saw that. That created a sense of, man, appreciation that some spawned into great business relationships with myself and some of those parents who were also entrepreneurs, some of them who were also a part of other organizations and institutions, or it just was a win-win-win. So that's what I do for these athletes, and I try to do my best early to get them to get out in the community, because waiting on the institution or waiting on your coach to do it for you may not never happen. Right. Once your eligibility is over, it's about filling those seats again and getting those scholarships replenished in order to continue to get out and perform for the next season. So I think it's something that both colleges, sports programs should definitely be more vigilant about. But I also think that, like myself, it's going to take, individuals who have who their why is growth and leadership and helping others. And I've been blessed and fortunate to have some great people in my life that have put that inside of me. Right. So I naturally do it for others, but I wish I had it from the network that I came from. Don't get me twisted. I do have some professors, right? Like it's those people, it's the professors, those who really saw greatness inside of me, who pushed me to be an entrepreneur, who will look over my business plan, knowing that if I started and launched this company, I can lose my scholarship. And they still told me to go ahead and do it, right? Those are the people that I respect and I love the most for their time with me at Lynn University, because they wanted me to be great and they pushed me to be great. Right. They didn't allow me to be the athlete who went up in front of a crowd and spoke with ums. They would redirect me or tell me to cut that out or go back and come back up and do it again. Yeah. So but it takes institutions having these open, just forward-thinking minds that want to truly see people's life change and transform. That's needed. It doesn't matter, just having a director or having people come around. You need people who purposely and intentfully within themselves want to see transformation in others in position to help elevate those young people and provide them with the type of, love and confidence they need to go out and be bold in this world, in this workspace.
Yeah, no, it's you're right. I agree. And I think it takes more individuals, and I think more as a team working together to do what you're talking about. I mean, I was talking to one person, actually an agent, NFL agent, and she was talking about how her player, former NFL guy, wanted to go back to his college and work with the athletes, and it was almost like frowned upon, because I think, and I've heard different reasons why. I mean, it could be bandwidth. It could also be that like coaching staffs change and all that. And I guess obviously that plays into it as well. But somehow we need to all work together with that. So talk a little bit about networking, connecting, and I was talking to one agent, and he said the best time to do it for athletes is when they're still playing, but most athletes don't do it. So talk about it from your experience as a player, and then also your experience as an agent.
Got it. So as a player, wasn't given much opportunity to do that. Again, I have to credit my parents and my upbringing, that I was a young man who was into the arts early. So from church plays to school plays to being a part of that type of economy, being in church, the choir, singing, being around other people, having to get out, having to meet people. I was a Boy Scout. So I learned some of those principles early on. being a part of, I was the senior class president in high school, so I was part of SGA. My life, basketball was always second for me, or sports was always second, third, and fourth for me. I really didn't see myself as a really, really good basketball player. I just knew I loved it. I loved the competitiveness of it. So prior to when I was a player, I didn't have it out of. I just learned how to be more vulnerable than other athletes. Like, I'll give you an example. We would go to practice. We would so I'll say this. I'll give you a typical day in schedules. Classes would start, wake up preseason. We waking up 5 o'clock in the morning, running track workouts, whatever, coming back, maybe a quick shower, then we're going to breakfast. Then we got class, maybe 2 classes before the afternoon. Lunch, practice 3-4 hours, study hall for another hour or so, dinner, right? By that time, it's 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening, right? But I've started my morning at 5 a.m. And walking back to the dorm rooms, what do you think most athletes are choosing to go do once all that long day is over?
Eat or sleep.
Very, very simple, right? They're either going to sleep, right? We had to sneak social activities in because there was no other room for nothing else. So for me, I distinctly remember walking back to the dorm with all my teammates, and I would see some kids sitting out under the tree, right? Just hanging out, maybe picnic style, relaxing. And we're the athletes on campus, so everybody knows who we are.
Yeah.
But we don't necessarily know everybody else.
Yeah.
So I would stop and go over, or if somebody was in my class, I would stop and go say hello and go talk to them. And my teammates sometimes would keep walking or go back, and they would go play video games or go play PlayStation or go and hang out or go and try to meet maybe a girlfriend or something like that. I would go and sit down and hang out. But it wasn't that I was told to do this. I just knew that there were people in my core classes that I developed a connection and relationship with about subjects and subject matter that me and my teammates couldn't connect on. So I would go and hang out with them. I would go and sit down. I would be the one jock underneath the tree with the quote unquote, smart kids or whatever they want to call them at the time. But I was there sitting down, hanging out, not just, treating them as if I'm better than them because I'm a star athlete on campus. But hey, we're both students. We got this paper. I'm going to be the one presenting. I'm the group leader. I'm that type of kid. So I just went and did that. So for me, I'm blessed that my parents kind of, pushed me out a little bit early to get out and be open and learn how to communicate, introduce yourself to people, not necessarily have to wait for someone to come and introduce themselves to you. Those types of small skills became very important for me as a student athlete on campus. I was the president of the poetry club at Lynn University, so I wrote poetry. I would host poetry slams and invite people in. So I've always loved just to have this social ecosystem around me.
Right.
But once that was done, now in my business, that's the most important thing that we teach. That's why it's so important to get our kids out in the community. That's why it's so important to make sure that if they're working these camps, that they're staying over, and we're teaching them about how to walk a kid from the court to the door to their parent. Hey, tell them 2 things that little Johnny did well today. Right? Hey, introduce yourself. Tell them this is what you saw. Hey, let them know if they need any additional help, you're available for private trainings or small group workouts that they can possibly hire you for. All of those things we teach, but it has to be taught because athletes, again, they're walking into these campuses and their egos is this big. Everybody's the man or the girl on their team. Right. So, it's hard to think that, opportunity in other places or not when the other 99% of these student athletes that not student athletes, but the other students that are part of this campus, they're there for a specific purpose and a reason. Maybe they're there to find themselves. Maybe they're there to come back and they got a family or another business they're going to go and take over once they get their degree. But for us, our main priority, and I think that's what needs to also change, is that, one of the first things that coach, your recruiter, is going to tell you is that you're coming here to play basketball. You're coming here to play football. You're coming here to play baseball. You're coming here to, and that's what they tell you. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
They didn't recruit you because you are, you have a 195 IQ or 1,000, whatever that number is. They brought you here. They need you to have a high IQ, but they brought you here because of your talent and your skills, and they want to sell some tickets.
Right. Yeah, and they're drilling that into you, and I guess that's part of the mindset then, because I mean, as an athlete coming in, and it's interesting, like you were saying, you were already thinking about kind of your next steps, and I've talked to some of the other athletes, and especially female athletes, because unfortunately, with them, a lot of it's a whole different matter with professional sports and how females get paid versus the men's sports. So
it's a travesty there. I have a WNBA player now that I represent, and to see them both, they just got a pay raise, right? Of maybe about $250,000 is the highest paid WNBA player at the moment.
It's bad, and so I think because of that, that's kind of fostering the mindset of, okay, well, I'm going to be doing other things when I get out. So they might be thinking differently with their plan versus that athlete that, like you're talking about, they're drilled in their head. This is you.
Female athletes have the ability to become unstuck sooner than those male athletes. Male athletes, they're stuck. That's why we're talking about this. They're stuck. The ego, it's a lot that goes into that. They're stuck. Females, no, they can, they can understand, because they know there's not much of a professional space for them anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So it's easier for them to let go. And also, no disrespect to males, but females mature a lot earlier than men. Yeah. So when you think about during that time frame from 16 to maybe 22, young women they have a greater sense of self.
Yeah.
A lot of the times than males do. And we see that transition. You can look through sports and just look in there, look in corporate America. Women are doing great things across all of those different platforms, but they are typically far more responsible. They're less risky when it comes to, brands, endorsements, and certain aspects of things, right? I don't recall no WNBA player who has died in a car crash or an accident because they were drinking or doing something. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they have certain again, just a more discipline sometimes than some male athletes do. And I think that's something that we can learn from young women, and we can learn from female athletes, and have them continue to have more of a dialogue between female athletes and male athletes.
Right.
And how are you guys doing it? How is it so easy for you to go and do this versus doing this?
Yeah.
So I'm with you.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good way, a good perspective of having them almost, like you said, kind of teaching the others and teaching the class. So let's talk a little about your transition out of basketball. So I mean, you transition. Well, I mean, you're still in basketball, but your transition out of playing college and sports and out of like the developmental league. Talk about yours, and then maybe just give us some nuggets to these other athletes of things to look forward to, and kind of.
Can you repeat the first part of that question?
Yeah, I jumbled that a little bit. Sorry about that. So I'm saying, just talk about your specific transition out of sports and then playing sports, and then some advice that you give to other athletes that are getting ready to be in that same position.
Got it. So the tagline of my company, Tailored Athletes, is measuring up to a changing game. So that would be my advice. That's what I learned how to do very early. Measure up to the changing game. The game is going to change, and you have to. I would say that for me, I loved the ability to go and acquire knowledge and information. That has been one of my greatest assets, to push myself to not only just have a bachelor's degree, to go get an MBA, to go pursue another MBA and get that and do all that other stuff, right? Knowledge and information. Once you acquire it, you have it, and nobody can take it from you. But also what it does, it removes one of our training philosophies is never put yourself in a one player dimensional box, right? So when someone comes into our training program, dad or mom might look at this tall kid and say, hey, I don't want him to play down low. He's gonna keep growing. Okay, great. Well, we agree. We're not gonna box you in at being a center because you are 12 years old, because you're 5'8" or 5'9", and you're tall for your age. We're not gonna box you in for that right now. Or you're a 10-year-old and you're 5'8". We're not gonna box you in at playing center. But guess what? Hey, what if your son can't dribble? You still want him to play the point guard position? Okay, great. So when do we address this? Before he fails over and over and over again as a primary ball handler, his ego is shot. The teammates can't trust him anymore to do the role. But mom and dad, we honored your request and we let him be a point guard. So our philosophy of escaping the one player dimensional box is simply saying that, hey, listen, we will help you. We will allow you. We see you firstly. We know what your LAD is, and LAD is LTAD, long-term athletic development. We know what that can possibly become, but until then, and until you decide to properly acquire these skills that you need, then we need you right here for the moment. So I would say that to athletes as well, and that would be my greatest advice is that, be very, very open and very honest about exactly where you are, but you have to be open about where you want to go. So measuring up to the changing game for me was when I came out of college and I wanted to go to the NBA and do all these things, the second alternative was going to the NBA G League. But prior to that, I had went to 2 other G League tryouts, and I flew all across the country and did open tryouts until I got to one open tryout where out of the 300, I was one of the ones they wanted to keep. But I only became 1 out of 900 because I went to 2 additional tryouts, each with about 200 to 300 people at each event. The first 2, I didn't make the cut. The third group of 300 in a whole nother state, I had to go to Roanoke, Virginia for the tryout. And I got picked. That became the journey that I started to be on. So started there, played in the NBA Developmental League, finished the season. Guess what? I'm waiting on another call from someone in the possibly NBA. It didn't happen. That call didn't come, Rob. So my next alternative was to go to Australia. So I went to Australia to be a professional athlete, a professional basketball player. Went there, spent time there, built up, measured up to the change. The game changed for me. I had to go back then. Came back, man, you know what? I'm all over the place. Realized that people that I'm calling had changed telephone numbers. I lost my Alumni Direct connection to people that I had in my life because I'm running around the country. It feels great, you make some good money, but coming back to that ecosystem of support that you had, years had went by then.
Yeah.
Who knows me? It isn't something they always think it says, what's the saying? It isn't who you know, but who knows you.
Yeah.
So when I got back, the question was, who knows me? Who knows me for being a diligent worker who's going to show up on time, high-level intelligent individual who can get any task or job completed in front of them? Who had I shown those skill sets to? The franchise in Australia, the marketers in Australia, the professional team there, the guys in the in the NBA Developmental League or whatever team. So I had shown that in the space of sports and what I needed to do to be a professional in these club teams, shown that. But once I left that ecosystem out into the real world back in Boca Raton, Florida, that didn't get me into ADT. Nobody knew me at ADT.
Yeah.
got a degree, got a master's degree, but they still don't know me for that. So I had to jump back out in the community, build those skills, continue to affect that, allow my business then to allow me to become and have associations and affiliations with individuals where all those skill sets can be put on display for people to see. Same reason how you and I connected through someone who's a part of our club, came a part of our program. And we're talking about 15, 16 years later, right? There's a relationship there that someone says, hey, no, I know that guy. That guy there, I'm gonna connect you with that guy because I know him. I know what he's about. I know what you guys can work together on. Here you go. And here we are today. So you can't ever discredit that. And again, these athletes need it. The outward facing persona is that they have it all together, or that we have it all together, Rob. But if your other athletes haven't been able to come on this show and honestly tell the truth about how insecure we really are, then they're lying to themselves, and they won't be able to progress, and they're going to constantly, find themselves in the wheel of denial, as opposed to in that wheel of creating that potential opportunity that allows them to overcome some of the insecurities, because they just don't know, right? It's easy to know when you release that ball out of your hands. I know it's going in.
Yeah.
When I send my resume to a potential employer, I don't know if they're going to even give me a call back.
Yeah.
And for an athlete, that uncertainty is what drives this high and low roller coaster of emotions that you can speak of, and also puts them in a position where they don't want to go and be vulnerable enough to fail in the new space, leaving collegiate, leaving this safety net that they've had for 4 to 5+ years. Especially now, guys get 5 to 6 years in college. I have one, the COVID, I have one athlete right now who he has been in college for 6 years. He began in JUCO, left Polk State College did 1 year there, went to Wichita State. He did 2 years at Wichita State, left Wichita State, did a year at Jacksonville State, okay, and just signed an NIL deal to go to New Mexico State as a 5th-year senior. And I'm sorry, so 5 years he would have been able to play ball because of the COVID year and them getting some of that stuff back. But, he just signed a pretty nice NIL deal to go to New Mexico State and play and become an Aggie. And the good news for him is that he's already part of the agency. He already understands who he is as a part of an athlete CEO. And this was a strategy that he is learning how to begin. Like, he's now understanding how to sell himself as a brand. And so if he does get the opportunity to go play pro, look at all the experience he has selling himself as an athlete brand to organizations and institutions. Yeah. And to have the credibility to say, hey, this institution didn't just sign me, they brought me, they paid me to come here. I got a scholarship here. I left this institution, I got a scholarship here. Then I left this institution, I went and got a scholarship, and they paid me too over here. And when after I came and did what I needed to do there, I had some more eligibility. And guess what? This other institution decided that my skill sets and my ability was needed, so they decided to hire me over here too.
Yeah, no, that's
man. And that's the difference, that the advantage that some of these young athletes who can get it right with the right type of guidance, that those skills are transferable now into the real world for him.
Right.
Right. He's had to interview with all of these institutions, all these different coaches. He's had to abide by their mission statement, their vision statement of their organization. He knows how to do that. He knows how to assimilate to do that. Right. And then he knows how to be vulnerable enough to put himself out there to go and possibly be told no and turned down.
Yeah.
So, those are some of the things and the advice that I would give that I said was some of my greatest assets, and some of the things that I think young people now should definitely hold on to. Vulnerability is cool. Being told no is okay. Don't be afraid to fail, and measure up to a changing game.
Yeah, those, I mean, great nuggets there. So, couple final things. Just one, you have to tell me what a White House entrepreneur is, and then
Oh, okay. So no worries. So earlier you mentioned, so if you do some research on me, you type in James Taylor White House Tailored Athletes, you will discover that we were honored as the top 100 entrepreneurs aged 30 and under before to be honored at the White House for dynamic sports and innovative programming. So on top of some of these other accolades, we've also been honored by during the 2011, the Obama administration honored our organization, Tailored Athletes, for our services and what we were doing. At that time, we had served at least about 7,000 to 8,000 youth. And right now we've serviced over 20,000 youth. And I'm personally on a goal of, I own over 250,000 thank yous, with a personal goal to get to 1 million by the time I die. So that's what that was about. That's what it was for. But it all stems to being transformational in young people's lives and being an advocate for change and uplifting them.
so everybody's got to definitely look this up, because we got to help James to get to that goal of 1 million. So,
yeah, I need 1 million thank yous. But again, that's on me and my staff and everybody to keep doing the work. Remember, it goes back to those who want to do the work, those who want to be someone that can be used as a transformational agent in somebody else's life, right? What I've accomplished, these accolades that you're hearing, and to be a simple country boy from Central Florida who grew up very, very humble. Me personally, without divulging too much, I've been a father since the age of 17 years old. I have a beautiful daughter who is now 21 years old, getting ready to graduate from nursing school. So we're talking about not just one extreme, life-altering moment that I've had to, work through, highs and lows there, do all of that. It's been a multitude of things, but it's all built character and allowed me to be who I am today. And I've also received some great mentorship from others, but also I want to give back, because it was so hard. If it was hard for me and I was able to come up and be in these positions and roles without a lot of help from others, I'm so grateful of it. I don't want others to go through that same pathway. Like, why make others follow down a path that's going to be so hard? Don't need to do that. So that's where I'm at. Would love to continue to help others. And I just hope my life story and my, my life can just, transform the lives of others. That's what I'm here for. That's
great. And then, so finally talk, where can people find you? Just kind of give a real high level of what you're doing with your Fifth Court Ventures agency.
Well, great. So you guys could connect with me. I'm on LinkedIn, James L. Taylor on LinkedIn. Our agency is Fifth Quarter Ventures. That's FIFTH quarterventures.com. You can find us on all social media platforms as well, Fifth Quarter Ventures Agency. And then Tailored Athletes is www.tailoredathletes.com. That's TAYLORED. Athletes.com. We're all over social media and branding. We currently also manage the USSSA, which is the United States Specialty Sports Association. We manage their national basketball program. We currently hold 175 events nationwide with our national championship, welcoming 2,000 plus athletes and families and coaches a year. That's typically held June 29th through July 2nd. Either in Orlando or Kissimmee, Florida. This year it's in Tampa, Florida, where we bring, sports teams and vendors from all over the country to come together for a culmination of some great basketball and sports conference leadership and information. So you guys feel free to reach out there. Again, on Instagram, I'm james.l.taylor. Would love to connect with anyone that's a part of your Alumni Direct and or the Athletes to Entrepreneurs patronship and the viewership, and connect with me. And if I can be of service in any capacity, we'll love to be that.
Yeah, no, that's great. And we'll put all that in the show notes as well. And you can find us on alumnidirect.com. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, make sure to
Perfect.
follow the show. If you can follow, we're on YouTube. We're also across all the podcast networks, but we really want to make a positive impact with a lot of these athletes and make a difference in helping them transition out of sports. And James, it was great speaking with you. We really
Awesome.
appreciate all the
Thank
time.
you. I'm going to have you on my show too, Rob.
That's
I'm
not
following
good.
back up with
I love
Legion.
it.
Yeah, but this is going to be in person. We shoot here at the office on Glade. So I can't wait to have you over.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Awesome.